Amen. How great is our God. Come on, let's just give the Lord a hand praise right now. Is our God great? Isn't he awesome? We serve a great, a mighty, and an awesome God. Amen. What a mighty, mighty God that we indeed serve. Amen. I greet you this morning, amen, with the love of the Lord, with the Jesus joy, and the happiness of the Holy Spirit. So glad to be in his service just one more time. Amen. I thank God for my dear friend and brother, amen, Pastor Golston. Amen. Come on, give God a hand clap for him, Pastor. We thank God for him, for our friendship, as he's spoken before. We've done some peace walks together, and we were in Birmingham together, and so I just thank God just for real friends. We live in a time where you can be online, you got a whole lot of likes, and you got a whole lot of friends, but how many of you can appreciate real friends? Can appreciate that. And so I thank God for him and for his friendship, for his witness. And I was thinking about when we were in Alabama, we were we were at a conference, the San Diego Proctor conference, and we were there, and we were looking at different classes in which to go to, and Pastor Golston had recommended that we go into a womanist class. And that was something I hadn't even thought about going to, but I appreciate that we did go, and I'm thankful for friends that will stretch you. Some of your friends want to keep you in a box. They want to keep you where you are from who you used to be. But I'm so thankful to be able to have friends that can stretch you and help you become all that God has called you to be. And so I thank God for him, for his lovely wife and baby, and amen, as they have come to minister. And that's not an easy thing, to come, amen. I know it's home for him, but to come to a new congregation and to be able, amen, to minister. And I thank you just for welcoming him. And he speaks about peace all the time. I feel like I've been here before I got here. Amen. He loves, amen, Peace Fellowship Church. And so I thank God that I'm here and I'm able to see that same love is indeed reciprocated. And so, again, I thank God for you. So thankful to be here today. As Pastor Golston mentioned, I am the pastor of the Corona Baptist Church in Southwest. And amen, only my good friend and brother could get me to come out on Sunday morning and be a part of Peace Fellowship. So, amen, we thank God for all of you having me on today. Also, he mentioned that I'm an author as well. We do have books for you today. How many of you know we're going to be all right? How many of y'all know that? Amen. We are living in a time, the title of the book is We're Going to Be All Right, a message of hope for believers and a God of social justice. And I wrote the book, the Lord had put it in my spirit about a year ago. I was preaching and there was so much going on, so much turmoil, so much, whether it's politically, whether it's violence going on in our streets. And I really believe that the church needed a response. And so we all know the statistics, we all know, amen, all of the different things that are going on out here. But I really believe that we really need to have something in our library to where we can talk about these things from a biblical perspective. I think so many times we want to categorize certain issues and call them social issues, but I believe that the word of the Lord deals with all of them. And so this would be definitely a great resource to have in your library. I'll be out there with them immediately following our worship service. I definitely want to get that in your hand, get that resource in your hand, because we need that assurance that even though we're walking through difficult times, that God is with us and that these times have not come to stay, but they indeed have come to pass. Amen? Amen and amen. Again, thank God for this opportunity. And as I usually say, if I'm at home in Corona, I don't want to hold you long, but I do want to hold you strong. So there is a word from the Lord today. And only my good friend, Pastor Golston, give me a text to preach. He said, I want you to preach this text. I understand that you're sojourning through the book of James. And so if you have your Bibles with you, normally it's our custom to stand, but what we do here at Peace is we stand for the reading, reverence, and recitation of God's holy word. We'll be looking at the book of James, Epistle of James, chapter number 3, beginning at verse number 13. And when you're there, if you can say amen, or it's already up there on the screen. The word of the Lord reads as follows. Who is wise and understanding among you? Let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it, nor deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. But the wisdom that comes from heaven, or from above, is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. The word of the Lord is blessed. While you're still on your feet, Father, we bless your name. We thank you, Lord God, for this preaching moment. We ask, our God, that you would take away every distraction, take away anything about me, anything that may be on our minds right now, Lord God, and inspiration. Father, give me power and persuasiveness. Lord God, hide me behind the cross, that we might only hear and see Jesus Christ. And now, Lord, bless the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart, that they would be acceptable in thy sight. O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. For it is in the mighty, the matchless, the miraculous, the miracle-working name of Jesus, the risen Christ, we pray. Let all of God's people say, amen. Amen. You may be seated in the Lord's house on today. People of God, just for a few moments on this Sunday morning, I would like to tag this text with the title, It's Above Me Now. It's above me now. Our theme or our sermonic claim is this: for those of you who are taking notes in seminary, they teach us that you need to be able to summarize your sermon in at least one sentence. So in case you nod off, amen, I have to walk out, you can at least say, I know what the preacher preached about on today. And so our theme or our sermonic claim is this: that as believers, our faith is active in the earth when we both trust in and walk out the wisdom that comes from God. As believers, our faith is active in the earth when we both trust in and walk out the wisdom that comes from God. People of God, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., in his autobiography, he tells the story of when he was a little boy. He and his father, they go into downtown segregated Atlanta to buy him a pair of shoes. And they go into the store and they sit down in the first empty seats that they see. And while they are sitting there, what ends up happening is a clerk walks over to them. Young white clerk walks up to them softly and politely says, I'll be happy to wait on you if you'll just move to the seats in the rear. Then King Sr., his father, says, there's nothing wrong with these seats right here. He says, as a matter of fact, he says, we're quite comfortable right here. And then the clerk says, sorry, but you'll have to move to the back. And then King Sr., he says to the clerk, he says, we'll either buy shoes sitting here or we won't buy shoes at all. And then he proceeds to grab Martin King Jr.'s hand and they walk out of the store. And MLK, he says it this way, he says that experience revealed to him at an early age that his father had not adjusted to the system. While they were walking down the street, his father says to him, he said, I don't care how long I have to live with this system, I will never accept it. And I just need somebody here at peace on a Sunday morning to know or ask the question, is there anybody here that is determined not to be adjusted to the system? I cannot adjust to a system that sanctions the breaking up of families and putting children in cages. I can't get adjusted to a system that sends children of color to schools that are overcrowded and underfunded. I can't adjust to a system that will allow the state to poison the water in Flint, Michigan, and then sit back and watch people die. I can't adjust to a system that witnesses mass shooting after mass shooting and refuses to take weapons of war off of the street and have more stronger and stringent background checks. I can't adjust to a system that allows police officers to shoot African Americans in their homes, essentially weaponizing an agency of the state whose mission is to protect and serve. I can hear the words of the late great congressman now, Elijah Cummings, saying that we are better than this. I can hear some of you saying today, well, preacher, I'm not adjusted to the system politically, but if I can just roll up in your driveway and check your mail, I'd like to ask, what about personally? Have you adjusted to the system personally? Have you adjusted to just having enough? Have you adjusted, amen, to not pursuing your dreams because times have become difficult? Have you adjusted to just having an average marriage? Have you adjusted to living as the system tells you to live? But somebody in here today needs to be reminded that dreams don't have deadlines. I wish I was talking to somebody in here. Howard Thurman, the great theologian, the great minister, the great mystic and mentor to Dr. King said, never reduce your dreams to the level of the event, which is your immediate experience. Well, I think somebody needs to know that today. Man of God, woman of God, don't downsize your dream because times are difficult. Don't allow failure to cause you to forget that God is faithful. It's good to reflect on what God has done, but don't restrict what God has done only to what he's done in the past. Just because you can't see a way, as the song was, as they were singing today, don't believe that God has not already made a way. Are you praying with me today? Because we serve a God that can do exceeding and abundantly above all that we can ask, think, or imagine according to the power that works in us. I believe today, my sisters and brothers, that eyes have not seen and ears have not heard, nor has it entered into the hearts of men that which God has for you. The psalmist wrote that many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him from them all. Jesus put it like this. He said, in this world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world. In today's text, James reminds us that our faith serves as a catalyst for us not just to attain wisdom from above, but to incorporate it into our daily lives. It's when we are walking in the wisdom from above and refuse to become adjusted by walking in the wisdom of the world that we are actually truly living out our faith. Let me go ahead and give you the context to help you better appreciate the content. We know here today that church tradition tells us that James, the author of James, is really James, the half-brother of Jesus Christ. We know that it was written and believed to have been written sometime in Jerusalem around somewhere between 46 to 49 A.D. James was a pillar in the church. He's a pillar in the early church in Jerusalem. We see through James' writings, we see the Jewish character of the epistle with its stress upon the law and the influence of the Sermon on the Mount, which it had upon him. And we know Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians chapter number 15, verse 7, that James did not believe that Jesus was the Messiah until after he saw him after the resurrection. And you know, Pastor Wilson, I don't jump on James too much. It might have been kind of difficult, amen, seeing Jesus get put in time out as a kid and watching him get put on punishment for not cleaning his room. And then 12 years old, he out trying to teach somewhere. And I can see how James was like, is this guy really, some of y'all got siblings, is this really the Messiah? James chapter 1, verse 1, we know he is writing to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad. And that refers to the Hebrew Christians living outside of Palestine. If you think about that, think about a diaspora, if you will, of Christians being scattered in part because of persecution. But not only that, we know that these early Christians, their problems, they were testing their faith. And James was concerned that they were succumbing to impatience, to bitterness, to materialism, to disunity, and spiritual apathy. The purpose of James' epistle, then, if you read it, it's not doctrinal, it's not apologetic, it's practical. James seeks to challenge these believers to examine the quality of their daily lives in terms of their attitudes and their actions. You see, James was under the impression that your beliefs ought to line up with your behavior. Oh, come on, somebody, that your Christ should be reflected in your conduct. You see, James believed that what you profess ought to manifest in how you perform. Or the old preacher would say it like this, that once the eternal becomes internal, James is sometimes called the Proverbs of the New Testament because it's written in a blunt and to the point moralistic style of the wisdom literature of the Old Testament. And moreover, because James, he's impassioned preaching about inequality and in social injustice, he's also earned the title of being called the Amos of the New Testament. Because of the many subjects in the epistle, I know y'all are reading James, it can be very difficult to outline. If you look at it, and various scholars have wrestled with this, they suggest that some of these pieces have no connection, all the way to that there is a unified scheme as to how he is written. In today's text, James believed that your trials should release your faith and thus produce action. James understood that true faith always leads to action. Here, James moves from the beginning of the chapter, where genuine faith should empower you to control your tongue, to a faith that enables us to walk in godly wisdom. Verse number 13 tells us, who is wise and understanding among you? Let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. James is saying to those of us who are wise and have understanding that the deeds that they perform, that they are rooted in humility, and that humility comes from God. James is careful to let us know that there are two types of wisdom at work in the world. There is the wisdom of the world, and there is the wisdom that comes from above. Amen. And we find here in this text that James gives us a list of vices and virtues that will show you and me which wisdom we are walking in. If we have been paying attention, we have seen the wisdom of the world at work. The wisdom of the world tells us to embrace a society where resources are scarce, causing people to become scared. A world where privilege and patriarchy are above the law, while those on the margins have no protection from the law. Where police officers can shoot in your own home, and we have to pray and almost start a revolution in order to get a shot at justice. Verse number 14, James tells us that the wisdom of that particular doesn't come down from heaven, but that type of wisdom is rooted in bitter envy and selfish ambition. Now that word envy in the Greek, it is the word zelos, and it means to be tormented by another's good fortune, and is active and aggressive to diminish the good in another. And if I can just update that for Peach today, the updated version of zelos would be hating. Are you with me today? Have you ever run into somebody who is upset by what God is doing in your life? Have you ever encountered someone who is upset by how you choose to live your life? That they are active and aggressive about taking you down. Somebody in here that knows about haters. Haters, amen, can be right up under your nose and you not even know them. You see, people can love your gift and hate your guts. Oh, come on, somebody. You know God has got his hands on you when people who have more than you are jealous of you. I wish I had some help in here. You're looking around and saying, you have more than me. Why are you upset? You got more followers than me on social media. Why are you upset? More people know you than know me. Why are you upset about what God is doing in me? But I need somebody to know on a Sunday morning, don't allow your haters to get you down. If you're operating with the right wisdom, God will show you how to use your haters as elevators to take you to another level. Well, somebody in here needs to know this morning that haters are necessary. Oh, I know y'all didn't want to hear that piece, but haters are necessary. The Bible tells us that our haters have to be close, so that David says that he can prepare a table before us in the presence of our enemies. You see, your enemies are going to have a front row seat to what God is about to do in your life. I like what James says here. James, he goes on to discuss self-seeking or selfish ambition. And that word in the King James Version is strife. And that word translated in the Greek, it means self-seeking. It means rivalry. It means one who seeks followers to create factions. In other words, unchecked ambition can cause you and I to operate in a wisdom that not only draws us away from God's wisdom, but then we take it a step further and begin to work to get people on our side to follow us. Verse number 16, for where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. All we have to do is look out over our society, sisters and brothers, and we see a world driven by selfish ambition and envy. We live in a world that tells us to live our own truth, treat people how you want to treat them. It's your thing, do what you want to do. We live in a world that tells us to do whatever you got to do to secure the bag and do whatever it takes to get what you want. We can see this type of wisdom operating at the highest levels of government in an administration that revolves around one man and him doing whatever he feels like doing, no matter who gets hurt in the process. We see fluctuating agreements between foreign nations. We see using the office to get dirt on political opponents, using or passing a tax break just for people who are like you. All of this me-based policy without any regard for the people who you claim you are there to serve. James says this wisdom is earthly, this wisdom is unspiritual. He says this wisdom is demonic. People of God, don't confuse knowledge with wisdom. God has given man great knowledge. We have created so much to improve our lives. We've learned how to organize and structure governments. We have learned and made incredible scientific and medical discoveries in every generation. Our current age has seen technology in all of its forms improve our ability to communicate, to be more efficient in our work, and to bring our world closer together. Don't confuse knowledge with wisdom. You see, wisdom is what do you do with knowledge. You see, that's why we can have great medical breakthroughs, but have a healthcare system that is built on profits and not people. That is why we can draft a constitution that states all men are created equal, all the while the signers are slaveholders. This is why we can create social media, but then it can be used to bully one another, spread lies, and used to divide the nation by a foreign country to get a president elected. But then there's another type of wisdom, one that comes from above. I'm in verse number 17, but the wisdom from above is first of all pure. It is also peace-loving, gentle at all times, and willing to yield to others. It is full of mercy and the fruit of good deeds. It shows no favoritism and is always sincere. All of these virtues of godly wisdom show us a wisdom that is rooted in community. It shows us a wisdom that is rooted in selflessness, a wisdom that is rooted in improving the lives of my fellow sisters and brothers. You see, when these virtues direct the course and the calling of my life, it is evident to the world that I am walking in a wisdom that comes from above. Amen. Let me help you out. I know y'all like the title of my sermon. I wish I was that deep to have been the one who had thought of it, but my title actually comes from a video that went viral not too long ago. And the title actually belongs to a brother by the name of Craig Brooks. Now, Craig is a 26-year-old African-American man, and he works at the front desk of a Holiday Inn in Austin, Texas. And then one evening, a white woman calls the hotel and requests a room. And Craig tells her that the Holiday Inn has an automated number in which reservations are handled. So Craig, what he does is he sends the woman to the line twice. And then the woman calls back a third time, and at this point, she's very upset with Craig, and she begins to start to talk disrespectfully to him. She proceeds to tell Craig that her mother has died and that she needed a room immediately. So Craig says, you know what? You don't have to be disrespectful. So what Craig does, he proceeds to gather all of her information together, and he's trying to book her a room. And then Craig, they're talking, and then there's a bit of a break, and Craig says to her, he says, is there anything else I can help you with? And then there's a long pause, and the woman is heard in the background saying to her husband, this effing N-word. Craig says, excuse me? Then the phone hangs up very abruptly. And so after that, Craig, he said, okay, following that conversation, he's startling and erupting end of the call. He then made a call himself to upper management, explaining to upper management what had just happened, and then he asked them, how should I proceed? So then 2 minutes later, management, they tell him, they say, okay, Craig, we have zero tolerance for racism, and that he could refuse her stay. You know what, you can tell her that she can't stay here. So what ends up happening is, after he gets off the call with management, the woman walks through the door, and then Craig hits record on his cell phone. And the woman comes in pleading and apologizing to Craig for using the racial slur. And at one point, she can be heard in the video saying, I said I was sorry. And then Craig then replies, he says, I understand, but it's above me now. It's above me. Sorry, the Best Western is next door. Craig lets her know that you are operating under a certain level, calling me out of my name. So I decided to take this interaction to another level. I'm not going to treat you the way you chose to treat me. As a matter of fact, you can take that mentality to another hotel. You see, there's another level of wisdom that I choose to operate from. You see, I believe Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high. And I know that today at Peace, is there anybody here who has made up their minds that I've already tried it the world's way, but it's above me now. I used to cuss folks out, but it's above me now. I used to be led by my desires, but it's above me now. Yes, my life always used to be about me, but it's above me now. As believers, our faith is active in the earth when we both trust in and walk out the wisdom that comes from God. And people of God, this week, I want you to ask God for his wisdom. How does God want you to handle that situation on your job? How does God want you to treat your spouse? How does God want you to raise those children? I know in James chapter 1, verse 5 says, if you need wisdom, ask our generous God, and he will give it to you. He will not rebuke you for asking. And people of God, just imagine what your life would be like if you and I operated with the wisdom from above. The impact we would have on the world. Imagine the barriers that can be broken by God's people who are determined to operate by his wisdom. We have enough people that are adjusted to the system. We need some people that are looking at the world, that are living in this world, and are determined to operate on another level, that are determined to operate with another type of wisdom. There is a way that works for all of us. There is a way that is higher than our current way of thinking and treating each other. Verse number 18, and those who are peacemakers will plant seeds of peace and reap a harvest of righteousness. We're called to be peacemakers. That word peace here in the Greek describes harmonious relationships between people and between nations. You see, James here, he's reminding us that when we sow these seeds of peace that are rooted in God's wisdom, we can create the relationships and can create the society that God intended for us to have. As a matter of fact, Jesus said it like this in Matthew chapter 5, verse 9. He said, blessed are the peacemakers. When you work with God's wisdom, proof that your faith is in action is that you'll plant seeds of peace, and the Lord has guaranteed a harvest. Amen. Notice James says plant seeds of peace. In other words, it's going to take more than one time. You have to plant a seed and make sure the ground is right and water it and pray God gives the increase. You don't see a harvest the first time you sow a seed. There is a gap between sowing and harvesting. You may not see a harvest the first time you go out on the streets to walk for peace. You may not reap a harvest the first time you take a stand for what is right. You probably won't reap a harvest the first time you try to organize your community, but you must keep planting those seeds and watch what God will do. Paul said in Galatians chapter 6, verse 9, and let us not be weary in well-doing. For in due season we shall reap if we faint not. Last point I'll be on about anyway. That word righteousness in this verse is the exact same word in the Greek that's used for justice. I wish I had some help. And if I read verse 18 again, it would read like this. And those who are peacemakers will plant seeds of peace and reap a harvest of justice. And see, I need you to know today that God wants us to put our faith in action. He wants us sowing seeds of peace for the poor, seeds of peace against police brutality, seeds of peace against environmental racism, seeds of peace against housing discrimination, seeds of peace for the least of these. And while you're sowing these seeds of peace and waiting for your harvest, just remember that the Montgomery bus boycott lasted 381 days. While you're sowing seeds of peace, remember those who took to the streets day and night for Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, Freddie Gray, and a host of others. While you're sowing seeds of peace, think about the women's suffrage movement. While you're sowing seeds of peace and waiting for the harvest, think about the anti-apartheid movement. Think about Black Lives Matter. While you're sowing seeds of peace, think about the modern day movements like the Poor People's Campaign and our sisters and brothers in Hong Kong. That's all right. I think some of y'all need some Bible. When you think about sowing seeds of peace, think about the 3 Hebrew boys who were put in a fiery furnace because they refused to obey Nebuchadnezzar. Think about Daniel who refused to give up on his God and was thrown in a lion's den. Think about Paul and Silas who prayed all night long while being locked in a prison. And then there was a man by the name of Jesus who came about preaching and teaching for 3 years, and the powers of being charged and with the trumped up charges, and he was sentenced to death. And the Bible tells us that they hung him high and stretched him wide, and he hung his head, and for me and you he died. But they put that seed in the ground, and the Bible tells us that 3 days later he rose with all power in heaven and earth in his hands. It's because he lives I can face tomorrow. It's because he lives all my fears are gone, and I know who holds the future because he lives. Oh, living, he loved me. Dying, he saved me. Buried, he carried all of my sins away. Rising, he justified freely forever. And one day he's coming on one glorious day. There is another wisdom that comes from above. And my prayer is today you have your connect cards, and as you engage those of you who want to give your life to Christ, you want a prayer for restoration and reconciliation. If you want to be a member of this church, this would be an awesome church to be a part of, and an awesome pastor here, and an awesome group that I see that is concerned about the community. This would be your time to fill out that card and allow the Spirit of the Lord to minister to you as you see fit. Amen?
Amen.
God bless you.
Amen.